Les élus ont voté pour. Faut juste que le gouvernement donne la recommandation royale au C300.
The Bloc Québécois continues to press the Liberals for an answer. Will they push through the Bloc's old age pensions demands? Yes or no? Well, the Liberals are hoping there may be a third answer to that question. Sources tell CBC News that the government is working on drafting a less expensive counter-proposal, one that would boost senior benefits but not give the Bloc everything it wants, even though the Bloc has been very clear they're not willing to negotiate. We'll see. That's where we'll begin today with the Power Panel. Lisa Raitt is a former Conservative cabinet minister. Brad Levine is a former communications director for the NDP. And here with me in the studio, Vandana Cotter is a former advisor to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, and Rob Russo is a former CBC parliamentary bureau chief, now the Canada correspondent for The Economist. Good to see you all. Thanks for being here.
Hello, David.
Hello, Dave.
Rob, let's start. You know, the Bloc has made it pretty clear what they want. It's $3 billion a year and growing. They say they'll negotiate on how we get that implemented, but not on what it is. Do you think the Liberals can flip the narrative a bit if they do come back with something that...
I noticed Steve McKinnon, who can be loquacious, was not in a hurry to talk for very long on his way out of the House today. And he did say that discussions are ongoing. I assume that means that the discussions weren't just with the NDP, and there are some solutions to this problem if they wanted to go down that road. You could target a measure to increase the OAS. You could target to low-income seniors, for instance. You could bring it in a bit later. You could bring it in over several years. So there are ways of doing this in a less expensive way. And if not, you know, there are ways of making a deal with others. I don't see the Parliament falling on this issue. I think there's a deal to be made, and the fact that they're still trying to make a deal tells you that there may be some common ground there.
Vandana, is there a deal to be made with the Bloc Québécois, who has said no negotiations on anything, or is there a deal to be made by putting something cheaper but still better for seniors on the table, and maybe getting the New Democrats to spiritually come back to the supply and confidence agreement?
One thing I've learned is that negotiation can be anything. People are always up for it at the end of the day. There's always going to be political posturing for media and for their own base, but you know, usually I wouldn't be surprised if there is a deal happening. What the Bloc needs to win is to say, like, look what we got. Right? Look how we push the government. So that's what they need to win to their base and say, look how effective we are as a party. This is also a good place to also bring in the NDP, as Rob rightly said. So this is very common in minority governments. The issue with seniors has been a priority for this government too, increasing GIS, increasing OAS, lowering the retirement age back down to 65. So it wouldn't be not aligned with the government's priorities. It's just a matter of how it gets done.
So Brad, you know, the Bloc has publicly said no negotiation on the substance of the demands. Everything I'm told from my sources in the government is that is their message in private too. There is no to-speak coming from the Bloc on this. So if that really is their position in public and in private, the government can come back with some sort of an option. Do you think Jagmeet Singh and his crowd might support it if it is a gain for seniors, even if it's not the whole ball of wax the Bloc is looking for?
Yeah, I think that is a reasonable assumption that we could make. I don't, if you take a look at what Peter Julian, the House Leader of the NDP, said even just on Friday, he said, look, we want a lot more work to get done in this Parliament. We want to do it outside the Confidence and Supply Agreement, but going vote by vote would get us there. The NDP have not put any demands on whether or not OAS has to perfectly mirror for those 65 to 74 as it does for those over 75. So they've left themselves open to saying, I believe, to saying, you know, maybe something can be worked out that the NDP could support. Now, if we take a look at the criticisms of the Bloc's position coming from Liberals, and that is it's not targeted. That it is too expensive, and that seniors are not the ones within society that need the help out of poverty the most right now. Younger people need more relief. But you could target it through an enhanced guaranteed income supplement. That is the part of the old age security program that goes to seniors that have the least income going on right now. So you could actually do two things. You could target more funding to the GIS, get the NDP to support it, and then get through there. And then, you know, the Bloc would be probably fuming, mad, because they blinked a little too early, and the NDP could avoid an election that they said their constituents don't want to see right now.
Lisa, you know, it's interesting that The NDP, the Bloc, and the Conservatives all voted for the bill last week, even though it adds $16 billion in spending. The Conservatives have not really explained how they feel about that, whether they've adopted that now as policy or if they're just kind of like messing around to bring down the Liberals, which seems like a more likely explanation. But do you see a way for the Liberals to not give Mr. Blanchet what he's looking for and still find a way to keep things humming along? Is it the NDP or bust at this point?
Well, that's a really good question. But let me start by saying that pound for pound, I think that Stephen McKinnon at this point in time is the most valuable cabinet minister that Justin Trudeau has. Between the labor stuff and what he's doing right now with the Bloc, he's absolutely crucial to negotiations. He's got a calm head. He's got a steady hand. So they've got the right person in there. But I'll flip over to the other side and be critical and say, do the Liberals have no shame? I mean, they're gonna barter and bargain away with our future treasury on the basis of hanging on to power for what, another 6 more months, because they're afraid to go out and take their mandate to the Canadian public. I mean, at the end of the day, for me, it is kind of embarrassing to watch this scramble, which is all out in the public, which I don't think portrays anyone, any party, particularly well, when you could just have an election and be done with it all, quite frankly. And Canadians, the last thing we want is for people to lose faith in the institutions, and we're getting close to the point where Canadians are completely tuned out, and not only tuned out, actually very skeptical and cynical about what's happening in terms of games to stay in power and games to throw them out.
Well, Rob, when Steve McKinnon took over for Seamus O'Regan, he got Labour and seniors. And right now he might be asking himself what he did to upset Justin Trudeau because he's been handed the two difficult things. But you know, they haven't said yes yet, right? And some of the buzz you hear is that the Finance Department and Minister Freeland in particular have been saying, like, hang on now, we set these targets in the budget, fairness for every generation, and here it is blowing the targets for more money for the 65 to 74 when there isn't a good policy argument for it the way there was with the 75 up.
Yeah, and to answer Lisa's questions, have the Liberals no shame? The answer is no. There's nothing like a blood-hued sunset hanging to focus the mind. And that's what they're dealing with. Now, are there other ways that they could avoid this? Yes, they could prorogue. There's a whole bunch of other things. So you're right. They haven't agreed to this yet. As to Mr. McKinnon, he's valuable also because former national director of the party, he knows what will sell across the country and what won't. And he also knows Quebec exceedingly well. So his pas de deux avec the Bloc is actually fun to watch. I'm pretty much convinced, even though I like to say that reporters' predictions are made to make the weatherman's predictions look good, that there are many paths to avoiding an election, and I don't understand why either the Liberals or the NDP would want an election now, particularly when it's not on their own terms. If they wanted to bring an election in early or face that possibility, the Liberals would prorogue and bring in a speech from the throne, and then they would at least have, I think, the beginning, the base of a platform that they could put forward to people.
Okay, so on that, prorogation, Vandana, everybody I talk to says no. In fact, it was said to me, like, if we prorogue, this is a Liberal speaking, we will look like total cowards. And the only circumstances they see prorogation being even remotely viable is if Justin Trudeau were to announce he is leaving, and they would then go have a leadership and go into the election. He says he's not doing that. So absent this, it seems like, do you see prorogation as an option for the Liberals? Because everyone I speak to absolutely rules it out.
No, I definitely don't see it as an option. There is some shame there. So I think they will. I will think that that won't be an option. I think to Rob's point, there are a lot of paths forward.
Right.
I also think that with every confidence vote so far, the CPC has stood alone, which tells you that no party wants to negotiate with them, and perhaps not maybe want to face him as a prime minister with a majority mandate. So it's in their best interest for the NDP, for the Bloc, to negotiate with the Liberals and to go back to their base and say, look, we still delivered for seniors. We got this much. It may not be the whole amount, but you still got to say, I'm an effective opposition member. I'm an effective partner to this government. I was able to deliver for you.
Yeah, it's the Conservatives who, when they come on shows like this one, say, have the election now, because they got all the money and they got, the 20-point lead. So Brad, I mean, just your quick thoughts on the notion of a prorogation. I mean, we're going to play a bit of tape that'll show just how tense things are right now inside the Parliament, but there is no clear indication that the Prime Minister and them are ready to pull the plug on it right now.
Are you going to play the tape from the fall of 2008 and January of 2009? Because that's when we had...
No, we're not.
That's when, the last time. So the fundamental difference when Stephen Harper lost the confidence of the House, it wasn't tested inside the chamber, but it was verbally said at numerous times in the public square that all the opposition parties were going to vote against his minority, and it was just a matter of time before he was going to face Lisa, you were there. Yep. Rob, you were there. Yep. David, you were there. I was down the hall.
I was in St. John's. I was not there, but I did watch it on the news.
You were watching. Yeah. You were reporting from there, from Newfoundland. But the fundamental difference there was that was at the beginning of a mandate, even though he lost confidence straight away. We're towards the end of a third mandate here, which is fundamentally different. I think the only time that he could possibly prorogue is to change leaders, to provide the Liberal Party enough time to do that, bring in a new leader, table a budget or a throne speech, which would then serve as that new leader's platform and campaign policy area structure. So I don't see that they're doing now. I think what's going to happen is they're going to come back with some benefits for seniors. I think the NDP will look at it carefully, say whether or not it's worthy of support, and then we'll carry on and have this conversation again in a few weeks.
There you go, Lisa. I think Brad just said the supply and confidence agreement is coming back. Is that how you interpret? No, but it seems. I think that is the simplest expectation, right? The rational self-interest of the parties is for some path like that to be followed, rather than sort of pulling the plug through a prorogation, which would create a whole level of hysteria around the government. What are your thoughts?
I think Vandana put her finger right on the pulse of exactly what's going on, which is 3 opposition parties that do not want to face a majority Conservative government anywhere in the near future. So they want to put this off. So they all have their self-interests that are going to combine to give them the hope of getting through to a spring election, for example, falling on the budget. But as far as prorogation goes, you can come up with a multitude of reasons to do it if you really want to do it. I mean, obviously the Bloc is playing hardball, and Mr. Singh gets put in that position of having to tie himself into pretzels to tell why he didn't rip it up. And in fact, here I am with a lot of Scotch tape, putting it all back together again in hopes that they can stick it out. And one last thing, fun fact, the reason why I never bought a residence in Ottawa was because of what we went through in December 2008 and January 2009. Nothing focuses your mind more quickly in a minority government to risk as being threatened to be brought down.
Yeah, it is. This has not been a real minority, really, since 2019, because we very quickly went into a pandemic and then the supply and confidence agreement. So, it functioned differently. I'll
give you another reason why this is not like a normal minority. I believe this is the minority that's gone the longest without a prorogation. And so you would think that would also give the government a chance to say, listen, they wouldn't say it this way, but we've run out of ideas. We need to think of some new stuff. Yeah. We need to propose a way for Canadians to think of the future, and it's time to prorogue and come back.
That goes totally contrary, though, with the political argument that's out there. We've got to get pharmacare through. We've got to get dental done. We've got to, finish jobs, right? So it's hard. I take your point, but it's tough for them to do it. Yes, they need to deliver these things.
Yeah, deliver on housing, deliver on all the things that are still on the table, that are still being done. You need to get that done to push that forward. And, that's not the Prime Minister's style. As you can see, he doesn't run and hide. He's going to show up and he's going to do his job, and he's going to try and prove to people through the many things that they put forward, which is, again, pharmacare, dental care, trying to get more housing out there, and trying to continue to contrast as to, this is what you're voting for. So I don't think it makes sense for them to prorogue. I think they know they will, if they do that, they will 100% lose the plot. And people will argue they have, but I think there's still people feel that at least people in the government are fighting for it. So, why prorogue now? It just gives a vacuum of space and way too easier to be defined by.
You dare the opposition to defeat you on your agenda. That would, if you're going to be defeated anyway, that's when you prorogue.
Yeah, but Brad, couldn't that be the budget rather than a throne speech? Couldn't they use the budget to web? That becomes the big inflection point, it seems, right?
Yeah.